Assalamu alaikum. Ibn Khaldun is a Muslim thinker and scholar who served governments in various parts of the Maghrib, Muslim Spain, and Mamluk Egypt during the 8th century of Islam or 14th century AD. His name is often present when mentioning great Muslim polymaths such as Ibn Sina in medicine, Al-Khawarizmi in algebra, Al-Idrisi in geography, and many others. And yet, his name sounds familiar, but his thoughts and theories are mostly neglected, understudied, if not unknown, to most contemporary Muslims, which is not giving him justice. Despite their genius sophistication, his ideas are simple to understand, and so visionary that they would belong to disciplines that were given a name only years or centuries later. Social sciences, sociology, anthropology, historiography, or economics. His work has been overshadowed by Europe's rise and monopoly on the production of knowledge, which would start barely a century after Ibn Khaldun's death. The likes of Adam Smith, Karl Marx, Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Auguste Comte are all part of or inheriting from what the West calls the Enlightenment period. And they are thought to be some of the main thinkers laying the foundations of how we view social sciences today all around the world. So, what was Ibn Khaldun writing about on his masterpiece, the Muqaddimah, and most importantly, how is he relevant to us today? 4 points. First, what's revolutionary about Ibn Khaldun is that he rigorously demonstrates that human history is not simply a linear narration of events and characters. By doing that, he goes against the way history has always been told. History then was mostly the product of chroniclers, word-to-mouth, or legendary tales, which could often be false or distorted. He goes further. For him, human societies are subject to irresistible cycles, laws, and patterns, the same way planets and stars are stubbornly subject to gravitational laws, quote-unquote. The past resembles the future more than one drop of water resembles another. End of quote. This idea is the underlying principle of sociology. The idea that individuals, as they are part of human groups, are subject to influences that go beyond their free will. The idea that social facts should be subjects of study, as reality is external to the individual agency. There is one simple reason that thought came to Ibn Khaldun's mind. He is naturally skeptic. He has no tolerance for lies, half-truth, and ambiguity. It was hard for him to believe in legends he was hearing about the foundation of dynasties, empires, and cities. Quote unquote. Untruth naturally afflicts historical information. If the soul is impartial in receiving information, it devotes to that information the share of critical investigation the information deserves, and its truth or untruth thus becomes clear. However, quote-unquote, if the soul is infected with partisanship for a particular opinion or sect, it accepts without a moment of hesitation the information that is agreeable to it. The result is that falsehoods are accepted and transmitted. End of quote. In fact, he wanted to be able to spot whether those stories are plausible or not. And for that, he believes that it is crucial to understand the invisible mechanics of a society, to reveal potential contradictions in historical narrations, quote unquote. Only knowledge of the nature of civilization makes critical investigation of them possible. The normative method of distinguishing right from wrong in historical information is to investigate human social organization, end of quote. In other words, Ibn Khaldun wanted to keep chroniclers accountable, know the how and why of history and human societies. He developed a framework that he applied to debunk legendary tales, such as the mythical founding of Alexandria by Alexander the Great, the so-called blackness curse of Ham, the son of Prophet Noah, or rumors regarding the Idrisid dynasty in Morocco being allegedly the product of adultery. This methodology is also relevant to us 6 centuries later, to understand why our societies are in their current state, how they have become the way they are, and what is awaiting them. Second, Ibn Khaldun contributed to popularize the famous wisdom, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Ibn Khaldun believes that dynasties, empires, civilizations, and sovereign powers, just like human beings, have a lifespan. They do not last or shine more than 4 generations. Generation here could be either taken literally or more loosely. It starts with the first generation, the founders. This generation is characterized by its high bravery, strong group feeling, high loyalty to the group's unspoken rules, competent and skillful fighters, with a leader who's a primus inter pares, or the first among equals, high degree of faith, sharpness of mind, forcefulness, and ruthlessness. Their temperament has been shaped by their harsh and dangerous lifestyle, and their population is relatively low. Then comes the second generation, the builders. The generation of growth, expansion, but also personalization of power. They managed to yield more revenue than needed from low taxes, as their fathers have been living in frugality and can do more with less. That newly acquired wealth enables that generation to achieve great breakthroughs in architecture, literature, sciences, arts, crafts. This is when the phase of luxury life starts, which makes the dynasty shine, but also sows the seeds of its downfall. At the same time, allegiance focuses less on the group and more in a man who will personalize power, while rivals are marginalized. As the ruler no longer relies on the group, he starts hiring professional soldiers and administrators, which starts the trend of increasing public spending. The group feeling becomes less sharp than before, as the population, beside being taxed, is being de-weaponized to leave a monopoly of legitimate violence to the newly founded state. Follows the third generation, the followers. A stage of stagnation, relative stability characterized the current state of the empire, but first signs of weakness start showing. Although that generation did not witness the dynasty's forefathers' hardships, they tried to imitate them through tradition, longing for the past and its glory. Their leaders have gone past the peak of their prestige built by their ancestors. They are less experienced and weaker in character due to the life of comfort they have inherited. Group feeling starts decaying further. And it all ends in the fourth and last generation, the squanderers, the phase of decline and collapse. Its leaders are politically senile, complacent, entitled, immoral, decadent, drowning in luxury and fulfilling their desires, when their forefathers were sticking to their basic needs. That generation has contempt for their ancestors' tradition and religion, ignoring the fact that their very wealth is the fruit of the 2 first generations. Actually, group feeling has mostly evaporated and is no longer sufficient to maintain the social order. Unlike the 2 first generations, they yield revenues insufficient to fund their lavish lifestyle, despite high tax rates that increasingly exasperates the population. That generation is doomed with several death options ahead. Invasions from groups with a sharper and fresher mindset, fragmentation of the empire, pandemic due to the overpopulation that pollutes the air and water, or a crisis due to insufficient or poorly distributed economic production that the empire will not recover from. Third, we all know that Karl Marx divides modern society in 2 antagonistic classes, the capitalist and the proletariat. Similarly, Ibn Khaldun sees 2 main types of human groups: nomadic, Badawa, which gives the word Bedouin, and sedentaries, Hadara. Those 2 groups grew from their respective mode of wealth production. Nomads usually choose animal husbandry, raising livestock, sometimes hunting, sometimes plundering, which leads them to roam around, living for their basic necessities. Nomadism precedes sedentary life. Sedentary people, on the other hand, have chosen agriculture, which attaches them to a land that later on evolves into a city. Over time, they achieve productive surplus that allows them to urbanize, focus on leisure and their desires rather than their survival. Ibn Khaldun perceived nomads as primitive but morally and physically superior, as they struggle to survive every day and focus on their most vital needs. They rely on themselves for their physical safety, which keeps them sharp. As they live a life of constant danger and can't survive alone, their group solidarity, family value, and selflessness are strong. They are always reminded of death, which makes them believe more firmly in a divine order. The second group is more quote-unquote civilized and achieves great refinement in arts, crafts, and sciences. However, that group also tends to be complacent and slave to its desires, and therefore becomes increasingly immoral as they no longer have to focus on their survival and fulfilling their basic needs. Also, they do not need the help of their family or extended group anymore, so they no longer feel the need to respect them. Everything around them reminds them of life and worldly pleasures. Society starts to atomize as people do not look beyond their personal comfort. The presence of state laws, an army, or a police protecting them destroyed their physical fortitude over time and their ability to physically defend themselves or use weapons. Combined with the fourth generation described in point 2, Ibn Khaldun theorizes that nomads are part of the first generation and later on become sedentary and losing sharpness, becoming vulnerable to attacks from nomadic and barbarian groups in the margins. That sociological framework becomes especially interesting now when the whole world is becoming mainly urban for the first time in the history of mankind, living in unprecedented comfort with all its consequences in human moral and physical state, with so much wealth produced that it starts irreversibly affecting the environment. Also, one side note, 600 years after Ibn Khaldun's death, humans are able to produce wealth in ways other than agriculture and animal husbandry, which sinks them deeper into an extreme sedentary lifestyle, capitalism, industry, and information technology, making life increasingly easier and safe, and exposure to temptation and superfluous desires inevitable. Which, to paraphrase a famous hadith, makes holding on to religious principles as hard as holding on to hot coals. But that's another topic. Fourth, last but not least, Ibn Khaldun's idea at the center of his thought is the concept of group feeling, social bonding, or, as he names it in Arabic, asabiyya. Asabiyya comes from asab, which means nerve, because as the whole body reacts when a nerve is touched, the whole group reacts when one of its members is affected. For Ibn Khaldun, this concept is precisely the engine of human history. Group with weak asabiyya or the praise of group with strong asabiyya. And as groups with strong asabiyya reach their climax, their group feeling eventually disintegrates. And they cyclically become exposed to groups with stronger solidarity. For Ibn Khaldun, the most virtuous kind of asabiyya was the kind displayed by the companion of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his well-guided successors. Despite their differences in tribes, social ranks, or race, their asabiyya allowed them to vanquish armies more numerous and organized than them. Because they were divinely inspired by a religious law, that asabiyya maintained the good sides of Bedouin life and characters, while establishing rules and principles channeling their untamed side, giving them an unwavering sense of what is good and evil for humanity. In short, Ibn Khaldun places history and civilizations in a natural or divine order, in the same manner as physical and biological properties govern the way created objects and life forms interact. For him, asabiyya is Allah's way of mechanically moving human groups around, giving their time of glory when their condition permits it, and eventually taking it away when that condition disappears. So, those are some reasons among so many others why Ibn Khaldun should be read today. To sum up, human history is subject to cycles, sovereign powers last or shine 4 generations, the dichotomy between untamed nomads and civilized sedentaries, and his flagship concept, asabiyya. Reading more about him and more from him should be more encouraged, as his writings are such a tremendous fertile ground, full of keys of explanation and comprehension, to think about our own social situation 600 years later. He is the proof that alternative approaches in social science theories are possible, outside Western epistemology. He could solidly stand on his 2 feet centuries before the rise and domination of Western quote-unquote enlightenment, articulating divine and secular sciences in one broader discourse and theory instead of separating them. based on his subjectivity as a member of the Dar al-Islam, and his own political experience and exposure to kings, princes, and tyrants. On top of that, he was fully aware that he was inventing a new discipline, quote unquote. In a way, this is an entirely original science. In fact, I have not come across a discussion along these lines by anyone. I do not know if this is because people have been unaware of it, but there is no reason to suspect them of having been unaware of it. Perhaps they have written exhaustively on this topic and their work did not reach us. End of quote. Also, we should read him and follow his steps because he has written this for us to appreciate, comment, give constructive criticism, and dig deeper, quote unquote. We are inspired by Allah. If I have succeeded in presenting the problems of this science exhaustively and in showing how it differs in its various aspects and characteristics from all other crafts, this is due to a divine guidance. If, on the other hand, I have omitted some points, or if the problems of this science have got confused with something else, the task of correcting remains for the discerning critic. But the merit is mine since I cleared and marked the way. End of quote. If you enjoyed that video, don't hesitate to like it and spread it to people you think it would be beneficial to. Your constructive feedback and reflections are very welcome. Assalamu alaikum and see you next time.